वो कहानी जिसमें मेहनत होती है, लगन और धैर्य होता है, और होता है ऊंचाइयों को छूने का जुनून। आज हम आपकी मुलाकात करवाने वाले हैं एक ऐसे ही शख्सियत से जिन्होंने अपने काम के बल पर कामयाबी की शिखर को छुआ। आज हमारे साथ हैं पवन कौल जी। वैसे तो इनका जन्म मध्य प्रदेश के जबलपुर में हुआ, पर पले बढ़े बॉम्बे में। बॉम्बे मुंबई हो गया, पर आज भी वो खुद को बॉम्बेआइट कहलाते हैं। महज 10-11 साल की उम्र से कहानी के प्रति इनके लगन से इन्हें एक स्टोरी टेलर बनने की प्रेरणा मिली। एक अच्छी रीडर होने के साथ साथ पवन जी फोटोग्राफी के भी बेहद शौकीन हैं। फोटोग्राफी के प्रति इनके इस प्रेम को देखते हुए उनके एक अंकल जी ने इन्हें एक छोटी सी कोडक कैमरा गिफ्ट की थी, जिससे इनका फोटोग्राफी के प्रति रुझान और ज्यादा बढ़ गया। वे बेहद खूबसूरत फोटोज खींचने लगे और आगे भी वो लगभग अपने सारे पैसे कैमराज और लेंसेज में ही खर्च कर देते। उनके अनुसार फोटोग्राफी एक सबसे बड़ा टूल है एक सक्सेसफुल डायरेक्टर के लिए। सन 1980 में हीबा वीडियोस के साथ इन्होंने 3 साल के कॉन्ट्रैक्ट के तहत 7 फिल्म्स और म्यूजिक्स बनाई। यही इनकी मुलाकात आदित्य पंचोली से हुई और आगे चलकर आदित्य जी की पहली फिल्म चोर और चांद का निर्देशन भी किया। इनके खुद के प्रोडक्शन में बनी सीरियल काश से जानी मानी प्रोड्यूसर एकता कपूर इतनी इंप्रेस हुई कि उन्होंने इन्हें मानो या ना मानो कर्मा, कोई आ रहा है, वक्त बदलने जैसे शोज को डायरेक्ट करने का प्रस्ताव रख दिया। फियर फाइल्स, भ्रम, कौन है, अदालत जैसे हिट सीरियल्स इन्होंने इंडियन टेलीविजन इंडस्ट्री को दिए। आपको याद होगा कोई है नाम का एक हॉरर शो आया करता था। इसकी रेटिंग्स ठीक ठाक ही थी, पर पवन कौल जी ने इसको एक नए रूप में ढाला और इसको नया नाम भी दिया, विकराल और घबराल। इस बदलाव के बाद से इस शो की रेटिंग्स काफी बढ़ गई। वो कहते हैं ना, सोने को कोई परखी ही परख सकता है। ठीक उसी तरह मामिक और के गोस्वामी की जोड़ी का रंग हर दर्शकों के दिलो दिमाग में रंग गई। इसी तरह इनके उम्दा काम के वजह से इन्हें इंटरनेशनल फिल्म फेस्टिवल ऑफ वर्ल्ड सिनेमा फ्रांस द्वारा बेस्ट डायरेक्टर के अवार्ड से नवाजा गया। इनकी पत्नी कविता कौल जी, जो परमहंस योगानंद और स्वामी क्रियानंद जी के भक्त हैं, उनके इंस्पिरेशन पर पवन कौल जी स्वामी जी के जीवन पर आधारित एक फिल्म बनाई जिसका नाम है द आंसर। पवन जी मानते हैं इस फिल्म के बाद से इनके जीवन में काफी बदलाव आए। पैसों से ज्यादा अपने काम पर महत्व देना एक बहुत बड़ी बात होती है और इससे पवन जी अपने जीवन में अमल करते आए हैं। उनका मानना है यदि किसी भी कलाकार के साथ अपने मन से जुड़ा हो तो आपके काम को ज्यादा उम्दा बनाती है। सो विदाउट एनी डिले, लेट्स वेलकम मिस्टर पवन एस कौल।
I was born in Madhya Pradesh and in a town called Jabalpur, and but I've been in Bombay since I was 6 years old, and so I consider myself very much to be a Bombayite, and against all the renamings and everything, I still like to call it Bombay, though I have nothing against Mumbai. Mumbai is fine too, but Bombay is something which I've been used to ever since childhood, and so I'm very much a Bombayite, a Bombay boy, if you want to call me that. I was since a very young age, maybe 10, 11 years old, I was extremely fond of reading, and I used to buy nothing but books. All my pocket money or whatever I had used to go into buying books. I used to buy second-hand books because that's what I could afford. I used to buy from these छोटे book stalls होते थे उस ज़माने में. You all were not, you all haven't seen that time. अब तो books have become very less, bookshops and all that. वो छोटे छोटे बुक स्टॉल्स होते थे वहाँ आप for 1 rupee, 2 rupees you could buy great books, and I used to love reading James Hadley Chase novels, and I used to read those, and I used to read Western books also, and comics and all that. And what I noticed was that sometimes while I was reading, I suddenly realized that I have not read what is on the page. Actually, I read it, but while I was turning the pages, I had started visualizing something from 2 pages back. So maybe a scene, what I read, I was visualizing that. At the same time, I was reading, but what I was reading, I was not really absorbing, but I was stuck in that 2 pages back visualization. And I started to realize that I have this thing of wanting to tell stories visually. I was too young to think of myself as a director or this or that, what it is, but I had that storytelling itch, in me. And then as I started growing up, a little 12, 13, 14, I started feeling that I wanted to be a visual storyteller, and I wanted to probably make films and be a. That time I thought of myself as a producer. I didn't really understand the role of a director. So I thought the producer is the guy who makes movies. And, I came from a family of producers. My uncle was a producer. He produced a film called Jab Jab Phool Khile, among a few other big hit of Shashi Kapoor. And yeah, it was produced by my Mama ji called Hiran Khera, and he was family. So I grew up with them. And also Rajkumar, the late Rajkumar, the actor, he was my Chacha, my father's first cousin. Paul was my cousin. So there's a whole family of filmmaking, of filmmakers, producers, directors. My father himself was a director, and though he didn't make very much known films, but he was a very, very fine director. And the one film that he was also a writer. He wrote quite a few films, but the one very big hit, very big success of his life, though unfortunately it's not credited, because in the titles of the film there's only the producer's name and the music director's name. और किसी का नाम ही नहीं है titles में. The film is Namak Halal. And unfortunately, but that is our film industry. He was not given credit. There's only the title produced and directed by Prakash Mehra, and music by, I think, Kalyanji Anandji or something like that. And that is it. 3 credit titles. 3 titles were there. Right? ये होता है, but ठीक है. I mean, that's the way life is. So I was very much in that kind of a family ambience, and people like Shashi Kapoor and all these people used to come to our house, and stuff like that. So then I went with that. Naturally, I was drawn into filmmaking, and that is how I realized that. And then before I became an assistant director also, because I had to do my studies, and so I fell in love with the camera, because one of my uncles used to do a little bit of photography. So he gifted me a small click, Kodak ka wo click box camera aata tha, and started. And so I've been shooting pictures since I was about 11 years old. And my only vice, if you can call it that, is photography. So all my money has been spent on my cameras and lenses. I have equipment worth maybe about 10 lakhs, so that's all. I pass my time with, is that. When I was very young, at that time when I was into the book reading phase, which ended when I was about 18, 19, everyone used to tell me, we have never seen you without a book in your hand. So I used to read even while eating. I was reading and eating with the other hand. I used to read before sleeping, that kind of stuff. And now people tell me, we've never seen you without a camera in your hand. So even as a director, I used to always have a still camera with me on the set. It was kind of a natural process, because once I realized that I wanted to be a director, and so the best thing to do is, you see, there was an option of getting to the film institute, but then I thought it's better to be getting some practical knowledge on, learn on the sets, because even people who pass out, they have to eventually come here and assist somebody, and for a few years. So that's how it all started, and I started with assisting my dad on one of his movies, and then I assisted 2 other directors. One was Sudeshi sir on a film called Prem Geet, because he was a friend of my dad's, and my dad was also writing some of his films. And the other was Raj Sippi, who was my friend when he was an assistant to Gulzar, so I knew him then. And when he started his first film in Car with Vinod Khanna and Vidya Sinha, Sriram Laku, Amjad Khan, so he asked me if I would like to join him. And I assisted him in that one film, and after that I became independent. I started directing ads and stuff like that. And that is all. So essentially I have assisted only on 1.5 film. The one full film was in Car, and the rest was about halfway through I left the other film. Then that was what I how I went about it, and then I started doing ad films and stuff. Actually, before Chor Aur Chand, I had there was this thing called Hiba Video, which was a company owned by Nari Hira, who's a publisher and the owner of Stardust and Society, Savvy, and those magazines. So he had started this thing. He had, like, you can say, he was one of the first studio guys here who started producing video feature films for VHS. So those were the days. This is 1980. I'm talking about, where films were seen on VHS a lot. उस टाइम पे कोई DVD वगैरह था नहीं. So VHS पे थी और या cinema halls में थी. So I made 7 films for him, full-length video feature films with songs, everything. 7 films I directed for Hiba Video, and if you look it up, you'll see. So Aditya Pancholi was one of the new people who we introduced, over there. So we introduced people like Aditya Pancholi, Urmila Matondkar, and so many other young people who were launched in these video films. And these films did pretty well. And so that's where I got to know Aditya, because his very first work was with me. And once his contract with Hiba Video got over, which was a 3-year contract, and he went into doing feature films. So he told me that he wanted to produce a film, and he asked me if I would direct it. And that was Chor Aur Chand. We were looking for a girl, and we wanted a young, new girl. And I met Mahesh Bhatt somewhere, who I used to admire very much for his work in those days, Saransh and Arth and all those films. And even before that, Lau Ke Do Rang. He was a kind of iconic director, maverick of sorts, and we were all at that age big fans of Mahesh Bhatt. And I used to meet him sometimes at Mehboob Studios and all that. And, he was very outspoken and very much of a rebel, in his ways. And I used to admire him a lot. And we asked him about, we're looking for this young girl and stuff for this movie. So he said, why don't you take a look at Pooja, my daughter? And he said, I've just launched her in a film. I've made a film for her with Anupam Kher. It was called Daddy, and it was ready, but it was not released. So he said, I'll organize a trial for you. Come and watch the trial. And if you like her, why don't you take her? We went and saw the film. Obviously, she was very good, very talented, pretty, very nice looking, and everything. And Mahesh Bhatt's daughter, obviously. So it was a no-brainer. We just immediately signed her up. And that's how that happened. Actually, I started television with my own production company, where I produced a serial called Kash, which was on Sony. It was launched when Sony Channel was launched. It was one of the first serials in that, So Kash was there, and it ran for a whole 1 year on Sony. And it was shot very ambitiously in the hills of Mussoorie and all that. And we had songs in the film with music by Nikhil Vinay and Kumar Shanu, and all these people had sung songs in it. And even today I get requests for the songs of Kash, because the audio is not available anywhere. But it had awesome songs and all that. So I produced and directed Kash, and my wife actually was the producer of Kash and Sadma. These were produced by her, and I directed it. And after that, I got a call. The first person that I worked outside our own production was Ekta Kapoor. She called me up, and I went and met her. In those days, she was not the Ekta Kapoor. I mean, she was just this new young girl who was Jitendra's daughter, and they didn't have this big, building and this big thing. Jitu ji's house in Juhu, which is called Krishna. It's a bungalow called Krishna. In the basement of that house was the office of Balaji Telefilms. And that's where I went and met Ekta, and she requested me. She said, sir, she was just, I don't know, very young. I never asked her age, but I think she must have been 19, 18, 19. And she said, sir, I really like your work a lot, and will you direct this Mano Yana Mano for me? And I said, sure, I'll do it. And that's how Mano Yana Mano happened. And after that, a lot of things started following up, and then we'll jump straight. I won't mention all the other serials which I did. And then Samandar happened because Z actually, I had done some work on Z. I had there also produced something. Our production company, my wife had produced a telefilm called Mausam for Z, which we shot completely in Nepal. Yes. And it was made on a budget of 20 lakhs. And the whole film was shot in Nepal with 6-7 songs and everything. And same Nikhil Vinay and all that. And we had Anuradha Podwal singing and Udit Narayan and Kumar Sanu, all those people. It was like, I had this whole thing about, I never cared about budget. For me, it was about making a good product. And I didn't think that I was making a film for 20 lakhs. I would spend all the money on it, but it was important that the film should be good. So we shot the whole thing in Nepal for over a month. And it was then that there was Vishnu Patel, who was the programming head at Z, and Rajesh Mishra, who was also working with him. Now they are no longer with Z. But when they left Z, they produced a serial called Samandar, for which they called me because they'd seen that telefilm and they asked me if I would direct it. So I went ahead, of course. But they were wonderful people, both of them. I'm still very friendly with them. Vishnu and Rajesh, both wonderful people. And then again for Mano, for Koi Hai, the show was launched and 7-8 episodes had been already aired. And it was not rating very well. It wasn't doing too well at that point for whatever reason. They were shooting everywhere in Mussoorie and this and that. And then from somewhere, the actor Chandrachud Singh, he'd seen Sadma and he told his brothers, who are Abhimanyu Singh and Narayan Singh, he told them that there's this director you should look at. And he told them to see Sadma. They looked at Sadma and they immediately found my number and they called me up. And Cinevistas and Contillo were producing it. So they called me and that's how Koi Hai happened. And the very first episode, I directed the channel. If I may say so myself, I don't like to, appreciate, say things about my own work. But it is a fact that Star loved my work and they immediately sent me off to Rajasthan to shoot the batch of next 4 episodes. And then the producers told me if I would be a series director on the show and actually set the look and the style and everything. Other directors were there, but I was the series director who kind of, set all that. And then even when Vikral came, Mamek and everything, we all took a joint. They asked me for my opinion on Mamek. It's not that I suggested Mamek's name, but I approved him because he had already worked with me in Sadma, and I really thought that he was very, very unique. Mamek is uniquely talented in the aspect that he's not like an actor like Nasiruddin like that, but he looks amazingly cool and relaxed in front of the camera. And I don't need to tell you that he was immensely popular in Jojita. People loved him in that film. They loved him, and I knew him from a little bit from before because he was working in. I think he was working in O&M, an ad agency, where he was the film executive or something. And I had met him once or twice when I was doing my ad film, much before I became a film director or director. So I had met him there. So when he did Jojita, and we were about to produce Sadma at that point, and I remember Amik, and I said, let me see if he'll do this. Though this film is such a big hit, I don't know whether he'll do it. And he was chilling somewhere in Mahabaleshwar and he was not available, and there were no phones in those days, and somehow we found him and he came and met me and he jumped at it. He said, I'd love to do it. So that's how Sadma happened with him. Just before Vikral started, I did an episode called Samandar. Now, when Sunil Mehta, the owner of Cinevista, when he saw this episode called Samandar, his son Uday was already very friendly with me, and he was one of the producers on, and very fond of my work. They all were very fond of my work. But when Mr. Sunil Mehta saw this episode called Samandar, I think Uday went and showed it to him, and they were planning to make films at that point, and they had already started a film with, which was directed by Puneet Isar, Garv, with starring Salman. So they wanted to launch this, do this other thriller. So Mr. Sunil Mehta called me and said, Pavan, I think you leave Koi Hai for now, and you please direct our film. And he offered me the film. He was so happy with the work that he offered this film to me, and that's how we did the film of the same title called with Dino Moriat. The title is a little difficult to pronounce, but it was very. Everybody was wanting to keep that title because even Koi Hai was, very successful. So before the film, we still had a few months of pre-production and everything. So during those 4 months, they told me to set up Vikral. So I did the first 9 episodes of Vikral. So the whole costume and everything, the look of Mamek and that bike and all those things, and like the thing where he likes to drink milk and stuff like that, because I thought the kids would like it, and all that stuff was kind of worked on by us. Of course, the team. I wouldn't like to take credit for everything because it's always the team. It's not one man who does anything. And I must mention that Arshad Sayyed, the writer, has a huge contribution in the success of Koi Hai and Vikral both. He is unique in his writing, in the way he writes stuff, because he still reads comics. Whenever I got a script from Arshad, it always turned out to be a delight, to direct. So it was such fun to direct for me that, when you start enjoying the making of something, that's going to work. When you're having such fun making, it's obvious that will, telegraph itself to the audience. So it's always a team. I must say it's never one man's work. So the producers, the channel, the people at the channel, they gave me such a free hand, which doesn't happen these days, But people like Deepak Sehgal, and there was Shailja, and there was Nilanjana, and Tarun Katyal, and all these people in Star, who gave us a completely free hand. They let me do whatever I wanted, and all the credit to all that actors and everybody involved, all the people, the whole team. Actually, it's difficult to recall specific incidents now, because very long back, and there was a lot of stuff that happened. In those days, we were all so enthused and so full of it was all the show. You see, I'm telling you, the producers Contillo and Cinevista, the best producers ever. At that point for television. It's not like today. There's so much interference. There's so much of problem. With channels and with everything. You don't have a free hand. A director is just somebody who takes instructions from the channel and works to the budget and this and that. But these people gave me such tremendous freedom. And also Ekta Kapoor, I must tell you that she gave me a completely free hand to do whatever I wanted to do. And the whole unit, it was like a picnic, for us. And one incident like Highway, for example, we were shooting it in Rajasthan on the road, and it was, I think, in June, in May, in the month of May or something. The heat was killing, people. They were wearing the shoes, the Nike and the shoes, the sports shoes. The heat that the soles, the gum, the paste on the sole melted, the soles came off, but nobody complained. You can imagine how much people must have been dedicated to the work. The soles of the shoes have come off of certain people. So when Vikral we were doing, it was the same heat thing. Mamik used to have to go into his makeup room or his vanity van. He was wearing this whole leather dress, and he used to have to take the dress off and lie down just to recover from that because of the perspiration and the sweating and everything. But nobody ever complained. So, it is this kind of devotion to the work that make that even today people remember. I am doing this interview with you, Tridev. I'm telling you, it's because of how much you love the show. It's because otherwise I wouldn't have done it. But when I saw that you love the show so much, and you've given me so much of respect that I couldn't say no to you. I said no. I must do this for you. No, actually, when Salil was doing it, I remember now they had called me and they asked me to do 1 or 2 episodes because I was very busy at that point then doing other stuff. I was already doing things for Balaji and all. So I did, I think I remember I did 1 or 2 episodes with Salil also. You see, the thing, all I can say is that, and this is not a comment on the work of any director or anything, nor would I like to say that Salil or somebody was responsible for this, because the episode I did with him, he was wonderful. But, sometimes what happens is that the image is so strong in the minds of the audience that it looked to me that Mamik was essential to it. And the audience didn't really like somebody else playing Vikral. This is what I can say. It's not that any sincerity was lacking or anything on the part of the other people, because for a channel like Star, they had a winner on their hands. There are very few shows which go into 4 and 5 seasons, and really, again, in all humility, I will tell you, if I may say so myself, I don't think there has ever been a horror show like Koi Hai on Indian television. I'm saying this without saying it in a egotistical manner. It's not that I am taking credit for everything. I'll repeat again that it was a joint effort. It was the synergies of all the people who contributed to the show. But sometimes a magic is lost, and it's not just because Mamik was not in the show anymore. Then once one thing changes, several other things start changing. So it's like on screen, Mamik may have had a certain off screen chemistry with Lily and with Gabru and all that. The off screen chemistry that Mamik had with these people was very different. I can't tell you this on camera on a live thing. Maybe when we meet personally sometime, I'll tell you the kind of things that used to happen. Nothing bad and nothing vulgar or anything. But there was a lot of mischief, going on. Now that probably is something which comes through on the screen. What you're not seeing, it comes through on the screen. All that went out. Then the directors and everything. The whole thing, something essential has gone out of the show at some point. Without there are many Hollywood films and everything also which you see. The sequel is never as good as the original. I mean, like if you take one of the greatest franchises of all time, if you even look at the Batman franchise, it's not all the Batman films are not the same. James Bond, for example, now my generation loved Sean Connery. There's another generation which loved Roger Moore. I also like Roger Moore a lot, but for me, Sean Connery was the ultimate. And then after that, I only liked Daniel Craig. So it doesn't mean that there's something wrong anywhere. Somehow that magic, it didn't happen with all the films. Father, if you look at it, part 1 and the part 2 was outstanding. The part 3, though it is very good, but it just wasn't the same. Or what do you say? Everything is the same director, same dedication, same passion, same everything. By then Al Pacino is a far more accomplished actor, but still the Al Pacino in the part 1 was something else. This is how it happens. Nothing to mourn about. Vikral is still very alive. The way you're talking about it. Sachin Kaul, now he lives in Vancouver. In Canada, he's a chef. He's a big guy there. So he used to come with me on the sets many times, and he did a couple of my other episodes also. In Samandar, he was that small boy, and he starts crying when Chetan is made to walk the plank and jump off, you know. KK is absolutely a delight to work with. He's again very mischievous, very naughty, very playful, and he surprises you with uh, with things that he does in a shot. Suddenly. It's not as if he's doing just what you told him. He gives you a little more. He's very cute, very sweet, and I definitely feel that he contributed tremendously to that Vikral thing. He was very, very, very good, very good. He is irreplaceable. You can't replace him. Shonali is great. She is, very, very good to work with. I mean, uh, she was just right, in that part. What was needed in that part, looking a little, I didn't know her or anything before. She was cast by the channel only, I think, or maybe the producers. I don't know. But KK, of course, there was no question of anyone asking or anyone approving him. There was no other choice. KK is unique, and despite everything, whatever it may be, I must say that Mamik's charisma also is tremendous. There's no doubt about it. Not at the moment, because I don't know where Sonali is. Frankly, she, I think, must have got married, or where she is. I have not. KK also not much. Yeah, not. I don't know what's happening. Mamik is in touch on and off every few months, or maybe once in a year or something. He'll surface and he'll call me, "Hi Chief, how are you doing?" वो उसका चलता रहता है. तो but honestly, if there's any project where which is good for Mamik, then it would be a pleasure to work with him. There's never any issue about that. But there's nothing on the cards right now. As a matter of fact, if you ask me, I'll just answer you a little more completely on that question about projects. The thing is that I am at a stage in my life when I'm being very, very selective about work. This is not to be understood as that cliche answer that people give. As a matter of fact, recently I have turned down 3 offers. One was for a Sony show, and there was something else that a producer wanted to pitch to Balaji Alt, and so on and so forth. And but these 3 projects I turned down because I was not excited by the thing. I feel that if I do whatever I do now, whether it's a film, whether it's television, whether it's the web platforms, if it does not excite me, I will not do it. For me, I'll tell you honestly, Tridev, we've never met that way. But I owe it to you to tell you a little more than you asked, because you're such a fan of my work, that I must tell you most candidly, money has never been my consideration for me. I have always, my considerations been first, the people who I'm working with. It is very essential to me that I like the people, that I gel with them, that I vibe with them, and that they are good people. Number 2, it's always been not really number 2. Number 1 again, on the same level of importance, has been what the project is, and then money and everything comes last, and then television went through a phase where, but there's a lot of money involved, and there are a lot of considerations, there are a lot of people who interfere, there are financiers, there are channels, there are people, who all have a very huge investment, to recover. Now, if they have certain ideas about how a project should be, they offer those ideas, and most times those ideas are not good. For certain things do happen. Now coming to today, I am at a point where I don't want to work on projects which will get interfered with, or which will not be what I want to do. So I am in talks with a couple of people for certain projects. During the answer also, I had very good rapport with Victor Banerjee, and he's an actor who's always ready to work with me on something or the other. So maybe it would be good to do maybe something for the web platform with him. I've always liked doing thrillers also. So maybe something like that. A spiritual movie is something. I know at some point you'll ask me that question about the answer. The answer fell into my lap as a blessing. I will say it is nothing less than a blessing. that you get to make a film like The Answer. It's not a commercial film, but it is a message given by a saint. And if you are one of the few people chosen to spread that message, I think it's a blessing. And I owe all thanks to my wife for offering me that, because she is a devotee of Paramahansa Yogananda and Swami Kriyananda. She is a devotee of Swami Kriyananda, and Swami Kriyananda didn't know anything about me or anything, but he just felt that my wife, her name is Kavita, Swami Kriyananda felt that she was a person who would be the right person to make his film. The film about his life, and his life, basically not even about his life. He would like to say that it's a film about his guru. That is what Swamiji would like everyone to know. So he chose Kavita to produce this film. And she very kindly asked me if I would direct it. And I didn't know anything. She said, of course, I can only take you to Swamiji, and then Swamiji will have to also give the final word. And she introduced me to Swami Kriyananda, and he approved. He said, okay. He liked me, and he thought that I would be good for the project. But I owe this to my wife for having taken me there and put this. And then she produced the film, and that's how The Answer happened. The Answer changed my life in many ways, because it's impossible. You see, for a director, at least I think many directors are like that, who take their work seriously enough. Whether it is directing Choro Chand, or whether it is one of those Aiba video films, or whether it is Mano hai na Mano, or Koi hai, or whatever it may be, I immerse my work completely in whatever I'm doing. I'm a storyteller. I don't think I'm doing TV or I'm doing a film for the big screens. For me, it is storytelling. And I'm completely sincere and dedicated to what I do. And somehow that affects me for the time that I'm with it. But The Answer had a much more lasting effect on me. I was familiar with Paramahansa Yogananda, because in my very young days, in my 20s, I had read the book Autobiography of a Yogi, and but I was not consciously, thinking of him as my guru or anything. But my wife definitely was. And then during the making of this film, it changed me in many ways, which I can't speak about so briefly. That's something I can leave for a longer. I was doing this Choro Chand at that point. Choro Chand was still not complete, and at that point I was approached by, there was this new music company called Vishwa Music, which was they were launching their, like the T-Series brand. So it was called Vishwa Music, and they wanted to make films, and so they called me and they asked me to, if I would like to make a film with them. And at that point, my wife was writing a script which she narrated to me. That was the script of Jadoo. This film was called Jadoo first. Ye Lame Judai Ke is a name which the producer later changed, So my wife gave me the story. It was a wonderful story, and I knew. Actually, Shah Rukh also, she had coincidentally told me once, when he was doing this serial, I think Circus, or I don't know, one of these serials he was doing, television. And she told me there's this boy, he's very good and all that on television. That's how we first saw Shah Rukh Khan. And then I was shooting Chora Chand in Darjeeling, and Aziz Mirza was shooting Raju Ban Gaya Gentleman in Darjeeling. And we were staying at the same hotel. And I know Aziz Mirza because he was the hero in the film which my dad was directing when I was a kid. Mirza knows me since I was a 14-year-old boy. So now Aziz Mirza was directing this movie, and I am directing Chora Chand, and we meet in Darjeeling. And Aziz told me that I have heard very good things about Chora Chand, and why don't you narrate the subject to me. So we met for dinner in the hotel, in the restaurant in the hotel at night after pack up, and I started narrating Chora Chand to him. And Shah Rukh and Gauri came down for dinner, and Aziz introduced them to me, and he said, "This Shah Rukh, this new actor." I said, "Yes, I have seen him in this thing." And he said, "Do you mind if they join us?" So he told Shah Rukh, come sit and listen to his script. He's making a fantastic movie called Choro Chand. I love the script and all that. He sat down and I narrated the whole film to Aziz. And every time I looked at Shah Rukh Khan, there was this intense look on his face, and he was completely focused and attentive and listening to the script, so carefully and so with full attention. And he had this very intense look about him, and I really liked him. So when these people asked me for Jadoo to direct, so this script that my wife had written was just perfect for Shah Rukh. So I narrated the script to the producers first, and they liked the script very much. And it was a musical, incidentally. It was about this young man who becomes a singer, and very, very beautiful story. There were many songs in it and everything. So I approached Shah Rukh for that. And I narrated the script to him, and he immediately said yes. And later then, there was an interview which Shah Rukh Khan gave in Screen when he became a little bit of a star. And at that time, he was doing Deewana and all these films. And Jadoo was still being made. So in the interview, they asked him that you are doing Hema Ji's film and this film and Deewana and all that. So what about the films that you are doing in future now? And what is your criterion for accepting those films? So he named these 2-3 films. Deewana and all that, and he said that I'm doing this film called Jadoo, which I'm doing because I like the director Pavan Kaul. Shah Rukh is such an amazing person. Again, when sometime we'll meet, I'll tell you some things about Shah Rukh Khan which nobody knows, and the kind of person he is and the kind of mind he has, and he is exceptional. He's not just Kiran, he's an amazing person. So that is how this film happened, Jadoo. It's not really a problem, it's, when I was shooting my movies also, like I told you, I used to always carry the camera with me. And, it's again, it might sound like a cliche, but I feel very unnatural without a camera. It's like I am not wearing a shirt and I am just in my banyan or something outside, I am I'm so comfortable when a camera is with me in my hand. And every time that if I have not carried a camera, I see a shot and I missed it. And then I curse myself that I wish I had the camera. It always happens. Like, it always rains when you don't carry an umbrella. So similarly, the best photos happen when you don't carry a camera. It's always like that. And then again, for me, filmmaking and still photography, they are not really different things, It's all the same for me. You can tell a story even in one frame. You don't have to make a 2-hour film to tell a story always. You can tell a story in one frame. There are so many brilliant photographers. I mean, I'm not one of them, certainly. So many brilliant photographers. If you look at them, every frame speaks. You look at Steve McCurry, and all these people, So for me, I'll tell you, not just that as a young boy, I started enjoying photography. I also always felt that a director, the camera, music, editing, sound, these are the tools of a director. And I know many people might not like this, but I think even the actors are a tool, the director. Actors might get very annoyed by that, because they're people after all, they're human beings, but they're also tools. At a very fundamental level, I look at them as a tool, because I use actors also to tell a story. One of the skills that a director must have is how to handle an actor. How to get an actor to perform. You must have seen many films, of these Iranian directors and all that, who use non-actors, people from the street, and there are wonderful performances there. It's the skill of a director, how to extract a performance from somebody, how you make a person comfortable. And it's not difficult. Actors just need to trust you. Once an actor trusts you, he will do whatever you tell him to do, So then you become his mirror, He doesn't have to look at the mirror every time and adjust his hair or do anything. He'll look at you, am I looking okay? I say yes, he'll say, okay sir, let's go. Very rarely. People complain about how difficult it is to handle actors. No, it's not difficult. Once you get their confidence, once you get them to trust you, every actor will look at you first with suspicion and you can't blame him, I'll tell you why. He's the guy who's there in front of the camera. And he's the guy on the screen who millions of people will watch. and either admire or abuse. It's not the director who takes the flak. So he has every right to be insecure. Once you understand that, and when he's standing there on that set, and there are 100 people standing around behind the lights, the spot boys and the lightmen and the assistants and this and that, and maybe some other spectators, and they're all standing there like this, looking, and the actor is feeling that now they're all judging me, and they're all asking me, show me what you can do. It's not easy, but believe me, it's a very hard thing to do. So you have to have a lot of sympathy, a lot of compassion for an actor. You have to understand an actor, what it is that he has to deliver. And then you have that bond with the actor because you understand him and he'll give you his best. So now coming back to your question, the camera, the still camera and these are tools, and I also fell more in love with photography because I realized that I must know exactly what a particular lens will do, what a 50 mm is, what a 100 mm is, what a wide angle is, what do I tell my cameraman? I can't tell him itna chahiye, I must be able to tell him the lens. What is the lens? Which lens I want? 25 chahiye, ki 100 chahiye, 40 chahiye, kya chahiye? If you don't know what you're doing, how do you expect a cameraman to give you? So then my early years when I used to assist my dad, all my time, I never went around wasting time with things. I shouldn't say wasting time, actually that's all part of a young boy's growth. Whatever he does, whether he stands at a street corner or whatever he may do, it's all the process of growth. But my growth was always hanging around the editing rooms of other people. And I used to go to places like Bombay Lab and Film Center and everything. And those days, nobody used to ask you, "Tum kaun ho? Kyun andar aaye ho? Kya hai?" You would just see an editing room, wahan andar awaaz aa rahi hai. Un dinon mein digital nahi tha, it was all film. And what I miss most about filmmaking is the smell of film. If you ever smelled, it's intoxicating. It's like a nasha, the smell of that film. So I used to just go into the editing room and I used to sit in a corner or stand in a corner and I used to watch the editing going on. You learn so much about filmmaking in the editing room. You can't learn that anywhere else. And then at the end of the day, if everybody, or in between when people used to go for lunch and everything, those small clips of film which they cut and they just throw away, 5 frames, 10 frames, and some, I used to quickly, pick up a few of those, look at them when they were, whichever I liked, I used to put them in my pocket and take them home. And I used to look at them and, try to see what, it's huge. Learning never stops, by the way. Even today, when I watch something, other people's work, I learn from there. And I enjoy watching other people's work so much, You can learn from anyone. You can learn even from the very bad films. Because there's nobody intends to make a bad film. The worst director on earth also doesn't intend कि चलो मैं आज जाके एक बहुत गंदी film बनाऊंगा. I can't imagine myself without a camera. Whether it's a film camera, whether it's a video camera, or whether it's a still camera. I have to have a camera in my life, period. That's all there is to it. What was running through my mind was that, first of all, I met Swamiji about 5 or 6 times before the film started, because unfortunately for us, he left us. He passed away. And but I felt a tremendous sense of responsibility, and there was never any doubt in my mind as to what Swamiji wanted in that film, what he wanted us to do. My wife and I, and all the other people who funded the film and everything, who are responsible for the film happening, he wanted to show what a good devotee is and what is the significance of a guru in our lives. This is what he wanted to show. He was not wanting us to make a film to show to the world the greatness of James Donald Walter or the greatness of Swami Kriyananda. He wanted to show us devotion that he had for his guru, Paramahansa Yogananda. So for me, the first and foremost thing, or for all of us, was that we must be able to bring to the screen, this devotion and this bond of love that was between Swami Kriyananda, the disciple, and the guru. This film was made by all of us as an offering and as a service to these great saints, This is what the film was. A very special film. It's changed so many people who've not only forget about the people who made it, it has changed all of us, but it has also changed the people who have just seen the film. Slowly growing like a snowball, like an avalanche, which is growing bigger every day. Experiences, again, like I said, there are many experiences. Now I'll first answer you about Victor Banerjee. See, before I entered the picture, my wife, I told you, was Swami Kriyananda's disciple. And when she spoke to him about who does he see playing Paramahansa Yogananda, Swami Kriyananda told her he must be a Bengali. And he said it in he has to be a Bengali. And my wife Kavita has a previous one incident where maybe more than 10 years ago, this is how life works. Things that happened to you 20 years back can suddenly play a very critical role in your life now. So some 15, 20 years back, somewhere she had, by coincidence, come to know the email ID of Victor Banerjee. She remembered it. She remembered the ID. She didn't write it anywhere or anything. She remembered it because it was very, very unique. So it was Crazy Old Vic, VIC, Victor, short for Victor. So Crazy Old Vic is the email ID, crazyoldvic@gmail.com. So she remembered it. So when Swamiji said that it has to be a Bengali, she thought that Victor Banerjee, this BAFTA nominated actor who has worked with David Lean and Satyajit Ray and all that, he's not going to do this film, but why not give it a shot? He said, let me try. She didn't even tell me about it, nothing. So she just wrote, and she didn't even know whether that email was still existent, whether it was still operative, whether it worked. She just wrote an email on Crazy Old Vic, and she wrote to him a paragraph about this film, and she said, would you be interested in playing this role? And he replied within a few hours. He responded and he said, certainly he'd love to meet up and talk to us about it. Then next, so now this in itself is an incident which you're saying any unique. Look at this incident, and so many magical incidents happened, but like I told you, it'll take too long if I tell you how this went. So what are the chances? I mean, this is such a huge coincidence. 20 years back, she gets an email ID. She doesn't forget it. She remembers it. Today, when she's making such a unique project, she remembers Victor Banerjee's ID. She writes to him and he responds within a few hours. And then we are going to calculate a program that Swami Kriyananda is doing over there. When Victor writes to her back that, yes, I would be interested, she says, so then how do we meet up? He asks her. So she says, we are going to Calcutta to attend a program of Swami Kriyananda because Victor lives in Mussoorie. Victor Banerjee lives in Mussoorie. So she said, we are going to Calcutta, and he says, I'm in Calcutta today. That's amazing, isn't it? So he said, come and meet me. So the next day we went and met him there, and we narrated the thing to him and everything. And he agreed to do the film. And he came and met Swamiji on the program, and that's how it happened. Magical. I will tell you, there are so many, I didn't have any warning. Maybe we can do it once again, remember some things and I recall it and I'll tell you the next time. There are so many magical things that have happened during the making of The Answer. And there have been a lot of difficulties also, which my wife being the producer had to face. And we all went through those things, me, the cameraman, all of us. Filmmaking is not an easy thing. People see a film and in 10 minutes they say, Arey bakwas hai. If they knew what goes on, how you pour your sweat and blood and your whole life into a film, then you'd think 10 times before saying, Arey bakwas hai. It's not easy. It takes a lot of struggle, passion, money, everything.